You're listening to DNA ID, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, Missing Persons, Scene of the Crime, Zodiac Speaking,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Campus Killings,
and
Killer Communications.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
On Saturday, December 1st, 1984, two deer hunters were stalking through a pasture in the remote and very thinly settled community of Wizard Wells, Texas. At the edge of a pasture at the tree line where a wooded area commenced, they noted some bones scattered around on the ground and nearby a plastic-wrapped bundle. That's never good. And it wasn't. Inside the plastic wrap were more bones, and they were human. Jack County Sheriff's deputies responded to the scene and noted that it appeared someone had wrapped a human body in plastic and dumped it where it was found. Animals had gotten into it and moved the bones around, separating them from the rest of the remains. A bra and woman's underwear pointed to the skeletal remains belonging to a female, but the deputies were trained not to jump to any conclusions. And indeed, the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office, which also serviced sparsely populated Jack County in North Texas, was unable to make an official declaration as to the sex of the person the skeleton used to be. According to District Attorney Brock Smith, the skull had female characteristics, but the rest of the skeleton appeared consistent with a male. Dental scans were conducted to obtain a complete set of dental records, and Jane Doe's dental examination revealed the work of one dentist using composite filling materials that were developed in the late 1970s. After the Tarrant County Medical Examiner had concluded its analysis, the remains were sent to the forensic lab at the University of Tennessee for additional study. The University of Tennessee anthropologist was able to determine that the skeletal remains were indeed those of a white female. She was 5'2" to 5'5" tall, 23 to 29 years old, had light brown or strawberry blonde hair, and had been deceased at least 3 months, possibly as much as a year. She had healed trauma to her spine that in life might have resulted in severe foot problems, and she had died from blunt force trauma to the head. Between the injury to her skull and her being wrapped in plastic in her underwear and dumped in a remote area, the manner of death was declared to be a homicide. Speaking of the plastic Jane Doe was wrapped in, what was it? Jack County Deputy Burl Downey told the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that, quote, "It looks like a shower curtain or a mattress cover or something," end quote. Some articles referred to it as a tarp, but no official information has been released. I asked Texas Ranger Michael Schraub, a DPS cold case investigator working alongside the Jack County Sheriff's Office, about the nature of the plastic sheeting. He told me that they were holding back the information about what exactly Jane Doe was wrapped in the eventuality that they had the opportunity to question a suspect in her case. Someone who could identify what the material was would be proven to have actual, non-public information about what happened to Jane Doe. Of course, because the body was wrapped, it points to the murder being carried out elsewhere and Jane Doe ditched in the pasture as a quick disposal method. In April 1985, the Jack County Sheriff's Office and the DA's office publicly announced some of the information known about Jane Doe. Brock Smith, the Jack County DA, said, quote, "We have no idea right now on the identification of the woman. The new information will be sent to other law enforcement agencies over the United States. Hopefully, we'll get some inquiries and possibly a positive identification can be made," end quote. Well, it wasn't. Teletypes were sent around to other agencies and similar cases were looked at, but nothing resulted in the identification of Jane Doe. Back in the 1980s, the Texas Rangers took a look at the unsolved Jane Doe case. In 1987, They told the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that Jane Doe had been killed by a blow to the head that fractured her skull, and that she had been dead for as long as a year. Interestingly, I found an article in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram from 1987 discussing how 4 rural, undeveloped Texas counties, including Jack County, northwest of Tarrant County and the teeming populous Fort Worth, had become dumping grounds for bodies from that metropolitan area. Killers were suspected to drive up from Fort Worth to take advantage of the sparsely populated acres upon acres of wilderness to deposit bodies they did not want to be associated with. As of the date of the article in 1987, 7 such body dumps had been found in just the past 2 years. Many of them remained unidentified. One of the bodies mentioned was Wizard Wells' Jane Doe, who was believed to have been slain in the fall of 1983 and dumped in Jack County. In May of 1987, forensic artist Karen Taylor's rendering of Jane Doe, based on her skull structure, was released. The black and white drawing showed a woman with wide-set eyes, a prominent nose, and a square jaw. It was very lifelike, but it didn't result in an identification of Jane Doe. Jane Doe's remains were returned to Texas authorities by the University of Tennessee, and she was shelved for several years. I don't have a date for this, but when modern cold case investigators picked up the case, they had to locate Jane Doe's remains and send her skull to the University of North Texas for DNA extraction. They were able to obtain an STR profile and in September 2021 entered Jane Doe into the CODIS Unidentified Human Remains database. But no one in Jane Doe's family had submitted DNA samples that could be used to identify her, so she remained nameless. Jane Doe had also been entered into NCIC and NamUs, where she was listed as UP4511. A case review in early 2021 adjusted Jane Doe's data slightly. She was reassessed as being a little taller than originally determined at 5'2" to 5'4", and her age was adjusted downward to between 23 to 27. There were several rule-outs in NamUs via direct DNA comparisons, but Jane Doe remained unidentified. In 2019, the Texas Rangers received 2 Sexual Assault Kit Initiative grants from the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance. The BJA's grants are earmarked specifically for, among other things, the investigation and prosecution of cold case sexually related homicides and sexual assault cases. The funds are intended to help pay for updated genetic testing and DNA analysis to help close those cold cases. Wizard Wells' Jane Doe qualified because she was found in her underwear and because there was an old report in the file that Jane Doe was a victim of a gang rape that ended in murder. That report is unsubstantiated, but was sufficient to qualify Jane Doe for the use of the Psacky funds. Jane Doe's skeletal remains were sent to Bodie Technologies, and Psacky funds were utilized to pay for DNA extraction and SNP preparation by the lab they contracted with. Bodie's in-house genealogy team then got to work on the IgG. Upon uploading to GEDmatch, the genealogists discovered that the top match in the open-source database shared close to 200 centimorgans of DNA with Jane Doe. This could be a second cousin once removed, a half-second cousin, and so on. Several other lesser matches shared less than 100 centimorgans each. The genealogists did not have matches on both sides of Jane Doe's family tree, permitting triangulation. All the matches were related to each other. So the initial evaluation of the solvability of the case assessed it at fairly low. But when the genealogist actually started working the case, she discovered that a much higher match was available to her. This person shared more than 1,500 centimorgans of DNA in common with Jane Doe. This would be a half-sibling, a grandparent or grandchild, an aunt or uncle, or a niece or nephew. In other words, someone very closely related to Jane Doe. Building the family tree of this top match led the genealogist to a married couple named Pauline Kilhefner Mumma, daughter of John C. Kilhefner and Lida Kokel, and Robert Mumma, son of Jacob Mumma and Katie Hoover. Pauline and Robert had raised their large family in Pennsylvania, and one of their children, a daughter, did not appear on any public records or have any kind of credit history since the early 1980s. There was no proof of life for her since around the time Jane Doe was found in Texas. And when this Mumma daughter was last documented, she fell within the estimated age range of Jane Doe. Bodie's report pointed the Texas investigators to the Mumma family in Pennsylvania with a recommendation that they obtain a buccal swab from another of the Mumma children, a suspected brother of Jane Doe. The Pennsylvania State Police contacted this man and he agreed to submit his DNA for testing because his sister had been missing for decades. In July 2024, testing showed that Jane Doe was indeed a woman long missing from this family. Her name was Roberta K. Mumma. Once she was identified, Roberta received a lot of coverage from LNP Lancaster, a local news source that I relied on heavily in obtaining information about her. Roberta, who went by Berta, was born in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania on January 24, 1959, to parents Pauline Kilhefner Mumma and Robert Mumma. She had several siblings and half-siblings, 6 in total: Joel, Ronald, John Michael, Stephen, Carol, Rochelle, and Thistle. Roberta was one of the younger siblings. Only she and her brother Stephen still remained in the parental home in the 500 block of State Street in Ephrata Borough when their mother Pauline died in August 1971. Roberta was 11 at the time and already an aunt to 7. This all from LNP Lancaster, quote, Roberta is first mentioned in the Ephrata Review on May 20th, 1964 as performing in the Ephrata Recreation Tap and Ballet annual dance recital. Mumma would be actively involved in the community during her childhood. She would take part in cheerleading for years, beginning with the Ephrata Red Rose Midget football team in 1971 and continuing through to the varsity cheerleading squad at Ephrata High School up until her graduation in 1976. All that from LNP Lancaster. A 1974 newspaper photo shows Roberta in her cheer uniform, smiling away, perched on one knee in the front row of a cheerleader tower. She was also a member of the Student Council, the Pep Club, the Pinnacle Club, the Girls Club, various intramural sports teams, and a volunteer at the Easter Seal Society of Lancaster, which was a nonprofit organization benefiting children with disabilities. In 1975, Roberta was nominated for Homecoming Queen along with 5 other girls in her senior class. I was quite impressed to see Roberta's name published in the local paper as an honor roll student year after year, from middle school all the way through her senior year in high school. That year, 1976, she also won significant scholarship money, receiving awards from the March of Dimes Health Career Awards and the Ephrata Area Education Association. She won $800 from the Women's Club of Ephrata and received a $300 scholarship from the Lancaster County chapter of the American Business Women's Association. In a piece in the Ephrata Review about Roberta winning the Ephrata Women's Club scholarship, she told the reporter that after graduation in the spring of 1976, she intended to enroll as a physical therapy major at the University of Pittsburgh. Her plan was all mapped out. She intended to attend the university for 6 years. During the first 2, she would be enrolled in the College of Arts and Sciences to study liberal arts. Then for the next 2 years, she would concentrate on medically oriented classes, and then in the final 2 years, she would study at the College of Health-Related Professions and receive a bachelor's degree. She told the reporter for the Ephrata Review that she intended to go to graduate school to get her degree in physical therapy. So young Roberta seemed absolutely brimming with promise. We just heard about her academic achievements, the scholarship money and awards, the accolades and accomplishments. So what on earth happened to Roberta? It's really unclear. Her mom died when she was 11, that we know. After that, Roberta was appointed a guardian, her older sister Thistle Rupp. When Roberta graduated from high school, her address was at the home on the 500 block of South State Street in Ephrata Borough, where she had lived for years. But now the head of the household was her sister Thistle. Her father lived elsewhere in town with his other family, including kids he had with another woman. After Roberta graduated with all her accomplishments and accolades, she did enroll at University of Pittsburgh as planned. She finished her freshman year, and then something happened and Roberta left college. It's unclear whether she ever returned for any of her sophomore year, but she did not complete that year. All her plans and ambitions for 6 years of schooling and obtaining her master's were abandoned. What caused Roberta to throw all that away? It's unknown. Not only did she leave UPitt, she left Ephrata. Of course, any of the usual forces could have lured Roberta astray. Perhaps her financial situation prohibited her from paying for college. She could have fallen into drugs. She could have suffered from a mental health crisis. She could have followed a boyfriend. But we have zero evidence of any of those things. The one thing I did notice was that when Jane Doe's skeleton was analyzed, it was determined that she had healed trauma to her spine that might have resulted in severe foot problems. The athletic young Roberta I saw in her local papers doing the splits did not have a back injury or foot trauma. I wonder if she suffered an injury and physical distress led to a downward spiral as Roberta struggled with how to handle it. Her family knows nothing of this, although many of them were out of touch with her at the time. I spoke with Roberta's niece, Monica, who was just a child when her beloved Aunt Roberta went missing. She is the daughter of Roberta's brother, John Michael, who is deceased. Monica told me that she has only positive memories of her young aunt, whom she described as wonderful. Monica tells me that Roberta was the best of the bunch, someone who helped out others, always smiled, and was the only family member to go to college. She had lots of friends. But when Roberta dropped out of college, her family sort of turned their back on her. Young Monica picked up whispers about drugs, hitchhiking, hippies. Her aunts told her that Roberta left college and embraced the hippie lifestyle, becoming itinerant and floating between music festivals and other gatherings. It was the late 70s. Many young people were doing the same. But the Mumma family became estranged from Roberta. Roberta called home periodically in the early 80s asking for money but was rebuffed. And then she fell off the face of the earth. No one in the family reported her missing. Investigators looking into what happened to Roberta have been able to trace some of her movements around the country. In September 2025, the Texas Rangers and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation issued a joint press release seeking information from anyone who might have encountered Roberta in Colorado, specifically in the Boulder and Denver areas. Texas Ranger Michael Schraub told me that his sources placed Roberta in that area of Colorado just after college. After that, she next turned up living and working in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where she was on staff at a Red Lobster restaurant. Her family was very surprised to learn this, as working at a chain restaurant did not mesh at all with Roberta's ambitious life plan that she had pursued for her first 19 years of life, and they were unaware that she'd been in Tennessee at all. The last they heard, she was in Texas. And she was in Texas. There, her journey ended in her undergarments, encased in plastic, and dumped in the wilds of Jack County. She had graduated high school just about 8 years earlier, full of promise and potential, all snuffed out by someone she encountered in her quest for something unknown. Roberta's brother Steve told Monica that the last he heard about his sister, she was hitchhiking to a music festival. No one had details. Steve had taken out personal ads in Rolling Stone magazine over the years, seeking his sister, figuring she would be a reader of that periodical. She never contacted him. Roberta was found in 1984. She's believed to have been about 25 when she was killed. When her father, Robert, died in 1986, his obituary listed Roberta as one of his surviving children, but it listed her as living at an unknown address. According to Monica, he always asked about Roberta and didn't believe she would stay away forever. Then, from the Graham, Texas Leader, quote, when her maternal grandfather died in 1997, a family member posted a public notice in multiple Pennsylvania newspapers notifying Roberta that she had been named as a beneficiary in her grandfather's will, end quote. Monica told me that her great-grandfather, Roberta's granddad, who remembered her in his will, always believed that Roberta would come home. Needless to say, she didn't return home to claim her inheritance. She was sitting in a box in an evidence room, her bones refusing to give up their secret. And when, years later, they did so, they still only revealed answers to half the mystery. Who killed Roberta Mumma? Investigators do have DNA evidence that may connect a suspect to the scene of Roberta's dump site. And the Texas Rangers and the Jack County Sheriff's Office are looking to speak with anyone who knew Roberta and might have information about what she was doing and who she was with in Texas. Jack County Sheriff Charles Holger recently told the Graham Leader, quote, someone knows something out there and we're hoping they come forward. Having the identity has given the family some closure, but we want to give the family some justice. After Roberta's identity was publicly announced, Texas Ranger Michael Schraub received several calls from people who grew up with Roberta in Pennsylvania. They all said that she was a wonderful person, but no one had any insight as to what had become of her after she left the area. If you have any information about Roberta Mumma, please contact Texas Ranger Michael Schraub at 940-549-0549 or michael.schraub@dps.texas.gov. Thank you to Texas Ranger Michael Schraub and Teresa Vreeland, Vice President of Forensic Genealogy Services at Bodie Technologies, for speaking with me about Roberta's case. Thanks for listening to this episode of DNA ID. Before you leave, please let me tell you about some important things related to the show. If you'd like to support this podcast and in the process, get access to early and ad-free episodes as well as bonus content like crime scene photos, you can sign up for a Patreon subscription for only $5 a month by heading over to patreon.com/DNAID. Of course, you're welcome to contribute more than $5 a month. We rely on Patreon funds to pay for the original source materials, I use to research each episode. If Patreon isn't your thing, you can also show your support with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts. It costs just $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. Your AbJack Insider subscription will give you the same benefits for not only DNA ID, but for all of the shows on the AbJack network, like Killer Communications and Campus Killings. Head over to Apple Podcasts and find the DNA ID page or look for the AbJack network to get started. If you're on social media, we'd love to interact with you there. DNA ID is on every major social media platform. Search your favorite platforms for DNA ID Podcast to find us. We also have a YouTube channel, and our website is dnaidpodcast.com. You can find links to all of these anytime in our show notes. If you need to reach the show, contact us by emailing dnaidpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, if you want to pick up some fun DNA ID merch and represent the show, visit the store at www.customizedgirl.com/s/DNA ID podcast. DNA ID is researched, written, and hosted by me, Jessica Betancourt. It's produced by me and Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Music by Connor Betancourt.